Hi, I'm Emma. I've always believed that kindness, even the smallest gesture, can change someone's entire day. Growing up, I remember my grandmother always saying, "A little love goes a long way," and I held on to that idea deeply. One of my most cherished memories is of her sitting me down with a warm smile, handing me a homemade cookie, and telling me that kindness is like a seed. If you plant it, it can grow into something beautiful. That lesson shaped how I see the world, and I've tried to carry it with me in everything I do. For as long as I can remember, I've dreamed of bringing my family closer, of creating moments where everyone feels connected and valued. Over the years, life has pulled us in different directions: work, distance, busy schedules, and I often felt like we were drifting apart. So I decided to organize a special family gathering, a chance for us to reconnect, share stories, and just be together without distractions. I poured my heart into planning it, choosing a cozy place where everyone could relax, preparing little touches that I hoped would make everyone feel loved and appreciated. I wanted to create a space where laughter could fill the air and new memories could be born. I was genuinely excited, imagining the moments we'd share, seeing my parents' smiles, my siblings' laughter, hearing stories that hadn't been told in years. I spent days coordinating details, sending out invites, and making sure every little thing was perfect. My hope was simple: that this gathering could be a spark to reignite our family bond, to remind us all of the love that holds us together. But I also noticed some family members seemed less eager, maybe hesitant or distracted, and I could sense that not everyone shared my enthusiasm. Still, I held on to hope because I believed that love and effort could bridge any gap. And now I want to invite you to stay with me on this journey. If you're someone who believes in the power of family, love, or small acts of kindness, I'd love for you to like this story, to subscribe and follow along. Because what I'm about to share is a very personal story, one that's helped me see my own family in a new light and has changed everything I thought I knew. So thank you for being here. I promise this is only the beginning of something meaningful, and I'd be grateful if you come with me as I open my heart and share what happened next. As the days went on, I started to notice something unsettling creeping into the atmosphere. My initial hope, that spark of excitement I carried into this effort to reconnect, began to fade, replaced by a quiet, gnawing doubt. It was as if my presence had become invisible or worse, unwelcome in this space I once thought I belonged to. I'd suggest ideas, small things, trying to contribute, an idea for a family dinner, a joke to lighten the mood, and I'd see their eyes flicker away, sometimes with a polite smile that didn't quite reach their eyes. They'd exchange glances, whispering among themselves in a way that felt like an intentional exclusion, as if I wasn't supposed to be part of whatever plan was brewing. I caught myself trying to read between the lines, asking myself if I was just imagining things. But then came the subtle signs that I couldn't ignore. During conversations, they would change topics abruptly whenever I shared an idea or a story. I'd be talking about something important to me, and suddenly the focus would shift, as if I had never spoken. It hurt more than I wanted to admit. I started noticing the small, almost mocking smiles they shared when I'd mentioned the effort I was putting into all of this. The way they'd exchange looks that said, "Is she serious?" Or worse, "How naive." It was as if my sincerity was a joke, and I wasn't part of their world enough to be taken seriously. Sometimes I'd catch a sarcastic comment thrown my way, disguised as humor. "Wow, Emma, you really went all out, huh? Maybe next time you can plan the whole event by yourself," they'd say, with a laugh that felt more bitter than amused. It was as if they were mocking my earnestness, making me feel small for trying so hard. I'd swallow the sting, trying to remind myself that maybe they didn't mean it that way, that I just needed to be patient. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pushed further away, that my effort was just a futile attempt to hold on to something slipping through my fingers. That's when the loneliness started to settle in. I'd sit quietly, listening to the laughter and chatter around me, feeling like an outsider looking in. My heart ached with a quiet, persistent ache that I couldn't quite ignore. I wondered if I had made a mistake believing that love and effort could somehow bridge this growing gap. Am I not enough? I'd ask myself over and over, trying to dismiss the growing voice inside that whispered that maybe I was fooling myself. Why did it seem like every move I made only widened the distance? I clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, things would change, but each passing day made that hope feel more fragile, more distant. It was as if I was fading into the background, invisible to the very people I longed to feel close to. And yet I still held on to that tiny flicker of hope, even as the shadows of rejection grew darker inside me, waiting for the moment when I'd have to face the truth I was desperately trying to ignore. I never imagined that something so small could hit so hard, But that's exactly what happened. I was folding laundry in the quiet of the afternoon, trying to keep busy, when I noticed my phone buzzing on the table. A message from my sister-in-law caught my eye. At first, I thought it was just a casual reply to something I'd sent earlier. But as I scrolled, my stomach clenched. The words on that screen, they weren't just casual chatter. They were plans. About the upcoming trip. And they were talking about going without me. My heart plummeted. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but there it was, crystal clear. An invitation, an arrangement, a casual note about leaving me behind. I stared at the screen, my mind racing to deny it, to tell myself it was all a mistake. Maybe I'd misread something, misinterpreted a joke. But deep down I knew. There was no mistake. They had planned this without me, discussed it openly, as if I was invisible. As if I didn't matter enough to be included. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. My hands trembled so badly I had trouble holding the phone steady. Tears welled up without warning, blurring the words on the screen. My chest ached with a dull, persistent pain I couldn't shake. How could they do this? How could they sit together, planning something so important, so intimate, and leave me out entirely? It was as if I'd been erased from their lives, dismissed as if I was nothing more than an outsider, an unwanted shadow. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. I felt my throat tighten, and a wave of nausea threatened to swallow me whole. I wanted to scream, to confront them right then and there, but I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I quietly slipped the phone back onto the table, my hands trembling so much I could barely hold onto anything. I needed to get away, to find some space to breathe and process what I just discovered. I retreated to the quiet corner of the house, curling up on the couch, trying to make sense of the chaos inside me. My mind kept replaying the words I saw over and over, as if the pain could be erased by simply refusing to accept it. That moment shattered whatever hope I still clung to. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, they'd realize how hurtful it was to exclude me faded into nothingness. Instead, a heavy wave of despair washed over me, crushing my spirit. I was no longer just feeling lonely. I was betrayed. Deeply, painfully betrayed. My heart felt like it had cracked open, leaving me exposed and raw, overwhelmed by a sadness so profound that I could hardly breathe. Hope, which had flickered faintly before, was now extinguished. All that remained was the hollow ache of knowing I'd been deliberately cast aside, and that the trust one once had was slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. I take a long, steady breath, feeling the air fill my lungs and settle into a quiet rhythm. For a moment, I let myself pause, as if each inhale is washing away the chaos that threatened to drown me. I know I can't afford to stay in that space of heartbreak and helplessness. No, I need to find a different way, something stronger, something that belongs only to me now. The tears have dried, but the pain still lingers, a dull ache beneath my chest. Still, I realize that I am here, alive, and somehow, that's enough to ignite a fragile flicker of resolve. I decide, silently but with unwavering certainty, that I will no longer seek their approval. I will not chase after the love that feels so distant, nor will I plead for a place at their table. It's clear now that no amount of begging will change what's been set in stone. My value isn't determined by their acknowledgement or their indifference. I am enough, just as I am, and I refuse to let their rejection define me anymore. Calmness begins to settle over me as I start to think clearly. I can't undo what's been done, but I can choose how I respond. I feel a quiet strength rising, a firm resolve to take control of my own life, even if it's just a small step at a time. I begin to outline what must be done, things I can do quietly, without creating a scene or seeking permission. I will prepare myself to detach from this toxic environment to protect my dignity with grace. First, I think of my independence. I will look into my finances, ensure I have my own resources separate from theirs. I will cancel the trip, not out of anger, but with a calm decision that I deserve better plans for myself. I will start making arrangements, little by little, to carve out a space where I am in charge. No more waiting for their approval. No more feeling like I am an outsider trying to fit into a world that doesn't want me. There's a peaceful clarity in this choice. I am not rushing into rebellion or confrontation. Instead, I'm choosing to step back quietly, to gather my strength, to reclaim what was always mine, my dignity, my voice, my future. Each small decision feels like a brick laid in the foundation of a new beginning. I realize that this isn't just about leaving a toxic home. It's about taking back my life, piece by piece, with patience and quiet resolve. As I sit with this newfound clarity, I sense something shifting beneath the surface. It's subtle but powerful. I know I'm not finished yet, that the real change is just beginning, and that beneath this calm exterior, a quiet storm is brewing. I don't need their permission anymore. I just need to move forward one deliberate step at a time, holding on to my dignity and my hope. Something big is coming. I can feel it, and I'm ready to face it with strength I never knew I had. I knew I had to act quietly without fanfare or drama, to reclaim what was mine. My mind was clear, focused, calm, almost detached, as I moved through the silent planning. The first step was to cancel the trip I had painstakingly organized and paid for. A gesture I had hoped would bring us closer but only revealed how little I truly mattered. I logged into my accounts, navigating the screens with measured precision, and voided the reservations, each click a small act of reclaiming my power. It wasn't about rebellion. It was about setting boundaries I could no longer ignore. Next, I gathered my personal documents, slipping divorce papers from a hidden drawer, organizing my bank statements and insurance policies, things that symbolized my independence. I placed them carefully in a small bag, a quiet act of preparation for the life I was determined to build alone. I didn't need permission, I only needed to be ready. My hands moved with deliberate calm, each step reinforcing the quiet strength I was forging within. I started separating my belongings from those of my family, not with anger, but with a sense of purpose. I packed a few clothes, kept a small box of keepsakes, things that belonged to me, and stored them where no one would notice, behind a closet or in a safe corner of the attic. The house was silent around me, oblivious to the transformation happening beneath its roof. The others went about their routines, unaware that each of my small actions was a gesture of liberation. I felt no bitterness, only a quiet certainty that I was taking back my life piece by piece. As I moved through these steps, a wave of relief washed over me. This wasn't about revenge or confrontation, it was about restoring my dignity, about knowing I was in control. Every action, every decision, reinforced the realization that I don't need their approval to be whole. I felt the soft strength of my resolve, unshaken by their indifference. The house remained unchanged to their eyes, but inside I was different. I was becoming someone who understood her worth without waiting for others to recognize it. There was a strange serenity in this process. No noise, no chaos, just the steady, measured rhythm of a person reclaiming her space. With each item I packed, I felt lighter, more anchored in my own resolve. I knew that soon, the external actions would follow. For now, I was content to stand silent, to let my quiet decisions speak for me. I was setting the stage for what was to come, knowing that this calm, persistent strength was the foundation of everything I would do next. And with this clarity, I felt ready for whatever lay ahead. I took a deep breath and silently decided that enough was enough. No more waiting for approval. No more hoping they'd see me or understand me. I needed to reclaim what was mine quietly without drama or noise. The first step was simple but deliberate. I canceled the family trip I had carefully planned and paid for. I didn't make a fuss, didn't call anyone to explain. I simply pulled out my phone, navigated through the app and made the call, feeling a lightness that surprised me. It was as if in that moment I had broken an invisible chain. No guilt, no regret, just a calm assertion that I was in control now. Next, I gathered the documents I knew I'd need for the next chapter of my life. My divorce papers, bank statements, insurance policies. Each one was a small piece of my independence, a symbol of my ability to stand on my own. I organized everything meticulously, placing them in a folder that I kept close. It felt good to hold those papers, to see my name on them without the weight of family expectations pressing down. I was silently rewriting my story, line by line with every document I prepared. Quietly, I began separating my belongings from theirs. I chose a few personal items, photos, a favorite book, a small keepsake, that held my memories but belonged to me. I packed them carefully, watching my family from a distance, unaware of how much was shifting underneath their radar. I didn't need to make a scene, my actions were enough. I moved through the space with a steady, controlled presence, removing what was mine without fanfare. It was as if I was creating a safe space for myself within the chaos, carving out a small sanctuary where I could breathe freely. Throughout it all, I felt a sense of relief, an almost tangible lightness growing inside me. There was no anger, no bitterness, only a quiet strength that steadied my hands and sharpened my focus. I was slowly disentangling myself from the toxic web that had held me captive for too long. With each step, I felt more grounded, more certain of the path I was choosing. The house, the family, their expectations, they all continued unaware of the silent revolution unfolding around them. But I knew that I was building the foundation for something new, something genuine, something entirely mine. There was a strange peace in this quiet action. No one needed to know right now. I had learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is move forward without a word, without confrontation, simply with a clear mind and a steady heart. I was preparing myself piece by piece for what was to come, and in that stillness I found my strength. I was no longer waiting for permission to be myself. I was simply becoming her, bold, calm, unstoppable. I could see the desperation flickering in their eyes, like they hadn't quite realized how thoroughly I had severed the strings that once bound me. The apologies came, shallow, rehearsed, filled with excuses that sounded more like pleas to go back to the way things used to be. They tried guilt-tripping me, whispering about how I was tearing the family apart, how I was selfish for choosing my own peace over their chaos. But I simply listened, silent and unmoved, watching their words fall flat against the steady beat of my new understanding. There was no room for their manipulations anymore. I had seen through the false faces they wore, recognized the desperation for what it was, desperate and ultimately powerless. I felt no guilt, no flicker of doubt. My heart was steady, calm, and resolute. I knew I had reclaimed what was always mine, the clarity to see their games, the strength to walk away from their attempts to pull me back into their web of lies. They begged me to return to how things once were, to pretend that nothing had changed, that I could just slide back into the familiar chaos. But I didn't respond. My silence was louder than any words they could muster. I had already made my choice. The power shift was complete. For the first time in my life, I was the one in control. I no longer needed their approval or their validation. Their pleas only underscored how little influence they truly held over me now. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief, sadness for what could have been, a family that might have been whole if only they had chosen differently. But that sadness no longer lingered as a wound. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a gentle farewell to the illusions I once clung to. Standing firm, I knew I had crossed into a new space of freedom. My strength wasn't about arrogance or bravado, it was simply the truth of who I was becoming, someone who no longer needed to chase after the shadows of their approval. I had rebuilt myself, brick by brick, from the quiet decisions I made alone. Their attempts to manipulate me faded into the background, powerless against the clarity I now carried. I saw their desperation for what it was, a plea for control I no longer owed them. I didn't need to respond because I had already spoken with my silence. I turned away, knowing I was finally free from the weight of their expectations. I felt a profound sense of peace, the kind that comes with knowing I am no longer defined by their dramas or their manipulations. I am only defined by myself now, and that realization fills me with a quiet, unwavering certainty. For the first time in a long while, I woke up feeling genuinely free. No alarms from a past that haunted me, no expectations weighing me down. Just the quiet comfort of my own space and a sense that I was finally carving out a life that belonged entirely to me. I started my day by making a simple cup of tea, savoring each sip without rush or distraction. It was such a small act, but it felt like a victory. Claiming my mornings, my time, my choices. I looked around my home, my sanctuary now, and took pride in organizing what was mine. Little things like folding my clothes neatly, lighting a candle that I'd chosen myself, and arranging my books just the way I liked. It was all part of rebuilding a space where I felt safe and at peace, not just physically but emotionally. As days passed, I began to notice how my mind cleared. I found joy in the quiet moments, reading, listening to music that truly resonated with me, or simply sitting outside and feeling the sun on my face. I didn't need anyone's approval to do what made me happy. I was learning to listen to my own voice again, to trust my instincts and honor my feelings. Every small decision I made reinforced my independence, and with each step, I felt a little lighter, a little more in control. There was a deep sense of dignity in choosing my own path, in celebrating my victories, no matter how tiny they seemed. I was no longer the person waiting for validation from others. I was someone who decided her own worth, who found strength in her autonomy. I began to create routines that nourished my body and soul. I started exercising regularly, not because I felt I had to, but because I wanted to feel strong and alive. I experimented with new recipes, discovering flavors I'd never dared to try before. I spent time in reflection, journaling my thoughts and acknowledging the progress I'd made. I felt a calm pride swelling inside me, pride not born out of arrogance, but from knowing that I had taken back my life piece by piece with patience and quiet resolve. There was no rush. I was simply learning to enjoy my own company and to cherish the freedom I'd fought so hard to claim. Most importantly, I felt hope. An honest, steady hope that this was only the beginning. I no longer looked back with longing or regret, only gratitude for having made it this far. I had built a life rooted in my own choices, my own dreams, and my own happiness. And as I stood here today, feeling the sun on my face and knowing I was exactly where I was meant to be, I understood that this peaceful, proud place inside me was the true reward. I had finally learned to live for myself, and that realization filled me with a quiet joy I knew would stay with me forever. As I look back on how far I've come, I realized that healing was just the beginning. Now I find myself exploring new passions and interests that I never allowed myself to pursue before. There's a quiet excitement in waking up each day, knowing I have the freedom to choose what brings me joy without the weight of past expectations or fears. I've started to pick up hobbies that make me feel alive, reading books that spark my curiosity, experimenting in the kitchen with recipes I once thought too complicated, and even taking gentle walks in the mornings. Appreciating the simple beauty of the world around me. It's as if I've rediscovered small moments of wonder that I was too busy surviving to notice before. Building new friendships has been another chapter of this unfolding life. I've encountered people who inspire me simply by living authentically, who listen without judgment and encourage my growth. Some are old friends reconnecting on a healthier footing, while others are new acquaintances who seem to see me for who I am now, not who I was in the past. These relationships feel genuine, built on mutual respect and kindness, and they remind me that I don't have to carry the loneliness or shadows I once believed defined me. I've learned to be open, to share my stories without shame, and to accept kindness without suspicion. It's a fragile but beautiful thing, this sense of community I've started to nurture. Everyday moments have taken on new significance. I find joy in cooking my favorite meal after a long day and listening to music that lifts my spirits, and in simply sitting quietly with my thoughts. I no longer see these as small or insignificant but as vital parts of my renewed life. There's a sense of gratitude that fills me when I realize I can create a peaceful space around myself, a space where I feel safe and whole. I've learned that happiness doesn't have to come from grand achievements. Sometimes it's in the quiet, ordinary things that I now cherish deeply. Most importantly, I no longer define myself by what I've endured or what I've overcome. I see myself as someone who is whole, capable, and deserving of good things. My past no longer holds the power it once did to shape my identity. Instead, I feel a gentle confidence growing inside, a trust that I am enough just as I am. I am capable of building a future that aligns with my true self, one filled with kindness, purpose, and hope. The possibilities now seem endless, and I welcome them with open arms, knowing that I am finally living for myself, fully present and eager for what's to come. This life I am creating feels rich and vibrant, not because it's perfect, but because it is authentically mine. Looking back now, I see the person I was before all of this began, lost, searching, sometimes overwhelmed by doubt and fear. I remember the quiet ache of feeling disconnected, like I was missing a piece of myself, as if I was living someone else's story. The challenges I faced seemed insurmountable at times, and there were moments when giving up felt easier than pushing forward. But somehow, I found the courage to keep going, to face those uncomfortable truths, and to embrace the parts of myself I had hidden away. It wasn't easy, and I know I wouldn't be here without a lot of tears, patience, and a deep desire to find my true self. Today, I feel a sense of peace I never thought possible, gratitude for every struggle, every heartbreak, because they led me to this moment of clarity and acceptance. There is no resentment in my heart anymore, no anger or bitterness about the past. Instead, I carry a gentle compassion for that version of me who was searching so desperately for answers. I am proud of how far I've come, of the strength I discovered within myself, and of the woman I've become, someone who no longer needs validation from others to feel whole. I've learned that true happiness isn't about perfection or having everything figured out. It's about embracing who you are right now, with all your flaws and your light. My journey taught me to be gentle with myself, to celebrate small victories, and to appreciate the quiet beauty that exists in everyday life. Every morning, I wake up feeling grateful for the gift of being alive, of having the chance to create something meaningful out of each new day. Looking ahead, my heart is open and my mind is filled with hope and curiosity. I know that life will continue to surprise me, and I welcome those surprises with an open spirit. There are so many dreams I still hold close, things I want to try, places I want to see, people I want to meet, and I trust that, no matter what, I will keep growing. My story doesn't end here, it's still unfolding, full of possibilities I can't yet imagine. I've learned to trust myself enough to step into the unknown, knowing that every experience, whether joyous or challenging, is shaping me into the person I am meant to be. I am excited to see what the future holds, knowing that I carry within me a wellspring of resilience, love, and authentic purpose. And so, I want to share this feeling with you, to remind you that no matter where you are in your own story, there is always hope for healing and renewal. If you're listening, I hope you find the courage to face your truths, to love yourself fiercely, and to believe that your story is still being written. Please leave a like if this resonated with you, subscribe for more stories that remind us we're never alone in our struggles, and consider supporting through the super thanks button if you feel inspired to keep this journey alive. Because, just like mine, your story too is a beautiful, ongoing adventure, full of love, growth, and endless possibilities. And I truly believe that, no matter what, you are enough just as you are.